Sometimes still stuck in the old 21st century. This is Star Trek Discovery Pod, a sometimes funny, sometimes smart podcast covering all things new and classic Trek. I'm your so chill, I just might be dead captain, Myrriah Gossett. With me on the V screen, we have
Clyde Haynes. Row, row, row. That's all
Your
I got.
boat gently down the stream.
That's it.
Merrily, no. And your recently reinstated podcaster. Oh, see, that's. I think that counts as 3 in a row, guys. I think that's like I volunteered as tribute.
You never said your name, Paul.
Oh, I'm Paul. Damn it! Now back to 0. 0 days of no incident.
Reset the clocks, everyone. If you're keeping track,
daylight savings. Anyway,
it's affecting all of us. Time. What is time? But something we've made up. Tonight we are talking about the 5th episode of this 3rd season of Star Trek Picard, entitled "Imposters." It's directed by Dan Liu and written by Cindy Appel and Chris Derrick. Just a couple of reminders before we get started for our live audience this evening. Clyde, how can people engage with us this evening?
Carrier pigeon. That's what we're doing this week. No.
Carrier pigeon. Okay. Come on.
You write the little note and then you flag it up. One of us will get it and then we'll read your comment live on the show. No, if you're watching us live, please type capital P, capital O, capital D, capital pod in the chat and we will take a look at your question, your comment, your correction, your altogether just wonderful statement. We'll take a look at it. And when that special time comes, type capital H, capital F, capital HF in the chat, and we'll take a look at your thoughts on tonight's episode.
Indeed. Paul, if folks are listening to us in the audio version, who we do love and appreciate, and they want to maybe share this show or support us in other ways, what are some ways that they can do that?
Wow, you're asking these questions in different ways and you're trying to trip me up.
Trying to mix it up, Paul. We're 5 episodes in.
because you think that I might be an imposter. But for our listeners, please subscribe to us to our podcast on Apple, Spotify, or YouTube. All links at StarTrekPod.co. And if you love this content and you would like to join us on our Patreon for just 2 strips of gold plus press platinum or dollars, you can. That will really help us at patreon.com/StarTrekPod.
Indeed. And for our patrons, I'm trying to work on potentially something to give folks, maybe a pin or a sticker, something of the sort. So if you have a preference, let us know. And the way to let us know is by joining us for $2 at the Patreon and talk to us over in the Slack. So working on some fun things, trying to get some things together.
I offered up a sticker of my face, but Myrriah didn't like that idea very much. So
I'll work on something.
Clyde, you are
send me your ideal selfie for this sticker, Clyde.
Okay.
You just let me know. Perfect. I'll take a screenshot of this thing. But I do think it is now time for some hot breaks. Clyde, what did you think of this episode?
I love this episode, but I've been a Ro Laren fan from forever. And to be honest with you, I'm not even sure why, but I love Ro. And, this whole season has been about Picard's relationship with his son. And I looked at them in that kind of 10 forward scene in the holodeck scene and was just thinking, you know what? This is the daughter. This is his daughter that he always had but didn't realize that that's the relationship that they have. And man, I thought this episode was fantastic.
Paul, thoughts?
It's all right. I'm kidding. I love this episode. It rivals last week's episode, which I thought was near perfect for what I want. I feel like maybe construction wise, or pacing, it wasn't as exciting for me because we're always cutting back between the return of Worf and Ralphie, right? But but the emotionality of like Ro and Picard's scenes there is just so it pays off so much stuff. Like if you're an old time watcher like myself, like it pays off like the penultimate episode of Next Generation, and like in Deep Space Nine, you're wondering when's the Dominion coming. You go like, what happened to Ro? It pays all that off too. Like and I don't know. It's just like as surprising it is for Picard in the sense of seeing Ro again and dealing with all those feelings. Like I don't think he knew he needed that kind of like closure. I don't think as an audience member I knew I needed that kind of closure with Ro. Yeah, I'm a big old softie. Like
Yeah. No, I'm with you. I really enjoyed this episode. I'm glad we're finally getting some of these pieces put together. I think Worf and Raffi are so fun together. I really enjoyed their scenes a lot this episode. And I agree. I was always a fan of Ro as well. I'm not as deep as a TNG person, but I've definitely watched all of the Ro episodes, and that's probably one of my favorite arcs of like a non-main series cast member. So I'm definitely on the same page with y'all with enjoying seeing her here. And I felt I wonder if this was the actress saying, I won't ever come back now. and like not a bad way, but in a, you know what I mean? Like she's like, okay, it's fully, this book is now closed, like closed, you know what I mean? Because she was actually invited to essentially be the role of Kira before there was Kira for Deep Space Nine.
Oh, was she?
And turned that down.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Oh. So I just thought that was interesting. But yeah, I think my one frustration is I'm like, Jack, why are we telling no one you are having these wild ass visions of killing people?
Well, I'm going to tell you right now, like, when I have those visions of like phasering like people, I don't tell anyone.
Even if they're so real, you're standing in the room where you might be doing it while holding a phaser.
While holding a phaser. I mean...
Oh, am I supposed to be telling people?
Ideally, Paul, ideally. Do we need to give you a phone number of someone you can talk to? But yeah, I'm enjoying it. I feel like the pace is getting a little bit quicker. I honestly thought this episode ended when the ship was starting to come back around to like hit.
Yeah, sure. Like the Titan.
Yeah, the Titan and the Intrepid. I was like, what's the other shit? When the Intrepid was like looking like it's like a little dragon, like popping its little head up, being like, psh, and I was like, oh, because it goes black. And I was like, oh, wow, we're going to end right at the beginning of the action sequence. And then we came right back. And I was like, oh, okay, good. We're going to keep it moving. Let's keep going. I was happy about that. I did want to ask you all something because I feel like we've sort of all touched on this, is that we all have deep nostalgia for all of these characters, right? Like we all are so excited.
Except for Shaw, but yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, like when Ro Laren appears on the screen, I feel like all I've seen on Twitter is like everyone is just nothing but excited. I feel like everyone's really embracing even our new characters. I feel like Shaw has had quite a redemption arc on the Twitter space, especially and hopefully in our hearts and minds.
Until he started humming and like I was like
the music from the Breakfast Club. Can you be mad at that? But my question is, and this is when I wish Grant still had time to hang out with us, is do you think this series is enjoyable if you started watching Picard from Picard season 1?
Ooh, that's a hot Myrriah.
It's not that like I'm having a great time watching it, but I am wondering, it's mostly, I think I'm also feeling a little bitterness about how much, because I love Discovery like so much, and because they're taking it away from me, I'm feeling very guarded about like my new Trek sphere and how folks are being like, this is the best Trek that's been on air since the original series. Like there is like crazy amounts of chatter on the internet.
That's insane, but
crazy amounts of chatter. All these polls being like, what's the best new Trek? And it's always like, anyway,
the answer is still Discovery, by the way. So if you're confused about that,
I also have these feelings. But to me, that then brings up the question, because I have friends who have never watched other Star Trek. Their first Trek is Discovery. Like they haven't even been watching Picard. because they don't know who any of these characters are. And I find that fascinating.
So,
in a good way.
It's funny. I wasn't quite thinking about this question the way you asked it, but as I was watching this episode for the second time today, I'm just looking at these characters, and I'm looking at Beverly in particular. And I'm looking at Beverly, and I'm looking at how she interacts with the actual chief medical officer on the ship, right? And I'm looking at like Beverly just kind of walks in and she's running the stuff, and the chief medical officer is like, what would you like me to do? What do you think? And I'm like, and I'm just looking at this and I'm going, I love Beverly. I have history with Beverly. In the Slack, there was a conversation about who should the next cameo be? And someone said Pulaski. And I was like, don't do that, because see, I didn't like Pulaski the first time she came on because she wasn't Beverly. So I have this attachment to Beverly because that's my chief medical officer, right? That's who it is. And I'm going, yes, but here, what I'm seeing is this nostalgia, right? It's just, I felt like they gave her more stuff to do. I don't know if you connect with this show if you didn't see, if this is your first Trek. I don't know how you could have these feelings for these characters that we have, meeting them for the first time now.
Yeah, I think you can still fully enjoy this show, fully enjoy it without having the backstory. But I think something like all of our deep emotional connection to Ro, I think if I was sitting down and watch it, because when I was watching it the second time, which is already impossible to do because I'm watching it the second time, I was trying to be if I had no backstory to Ro, would I find this to be a successful ending to this character?
Did you watch Battlestar Galactica?
I did watch Battlestar Galactica.
I'm saying if you watch Battlestar Galactica and she pops, and you've seen it, and she pops up and this character, you still would have
She also played one of my favorite villains in True Blood. This actress has played a lot of pretty iconic characters.
I do love Michelle Forbes, so she's she walked in with more gravitas than I remember. She has way more gravitas now than she did as Ensign Ro Laren, and I even felt like she was huge when she walked into a room then.
Yeah. And by the end of it, I was like, I do think you get the importance of her in Picard's life by the end of this, even if you did not have full knowledge of her arc in TNG, I think. But again, it's hard for me to fully say because I do have a knowledge of her story arc, right?
Well, I have a take. If about maybe 7 years ago or some number of years ago, Doctor Who became really hot again, right?
Mm-hmm.
But people just dove in going, oh my God, this is so great, blah, blah, blah. And I dove in before, after David Tennant left.
Mm-hmm.
And, you see all these people come in and out of Doctor Who's life. Mm-hmm. And I wasn't there at the original with the Scarf Doctor Who. But at the same time, if done correctly, the importance of these things, the Daleks coming, and so I feel like this episode and this season introduces these people in a way that is still dramatically relevant. You don't get the this is such a part of the bigger universe type thing that you might want to, which is richness as it is. But I think on a level of just sheer enjoyment and understanding of drama, I have to assume when I look at it structurally, I feel like it's there. There are times when it's always, to me, it's always insulting though necessary that people have to reiterate things they already know. We are where Ralphie goes if they're going to use a wormhole thing to as a diversion, it's all and that constant reinforcement, I feel, always gives people space who are jumping in at a different time.
Right.
But also, even beyond just the characters, the whole concept of the Changeling, they haven't really introduced the Changeling as a new villain, right? It's almost I wonder if you're new does it not feel like you've walked into the middle of a conversation?
But I mean, I think you get the gist, right? They're people, they're
Mhm.
imposters. They've given you, I think, enough pieces of information to know that there are bad. Do you know the full extent of it? No, but I think that they're slowly revealing it. And I think they are smart in this choice of it is a new evolution of the changeling, right? They're giving us
Yeah.
something new so that you don't kind of, because essentially our characters are learning all of the same pieces of information as we are as the viewer, right? Like you don't need any of the backstory of the changelings really in order to understand what our characters are going through at the moment.
I have another.
But hold on, let's say I was just gonna add. What you don't get is their why. Like I think we get a little bit of their why if you know kind of their
But I think
backstory.
we don't know what their why at the moment, right? Like we have no idea why they've decided to come back and do all of this stuff. We know they're coming back, and they've made it clear. Seven delivers that line of like, oh, we've had this technology on board our ships since the Dominion War. So we're like, oh, okay, this is someone we've battled in the past. And I think that's all you kind of need to know going forward at the moment. I don't know for sure.
Sorry, Paul, I cut you off there for a second. Go ahead.
Well, I just had like the most important point ever to be made, and I forgot it now. It's been. I'm just kidding. So, you guys ever watched The Mandalorian?
Yes,
I've watched them. Yeah.
Yes. Okay, so like at the end of season 1 of The Mandalorian, like the Gideon, cuts up his TIE fighter with the black saber, right?
Yes.
Sure.
It's a black lightsaber.
I don't think I watched that one, but sure.
Okay, it's okay. Anyway, so like, if you hadn't watched the cartoon Clones War, which I had not, like you go like, what the hell's that? That's something important. Oh my god, like it's a black lightsaber. Like that's really weird. But I still like enjoyed it, even though I didn't know the significance of it. Those who had, I have since gone and researched what it means and blah blah blah, and it's pretty cool. But like, as a straight storytelling, like you can enjoy all that stuff, just straight. And what actually, I think what the genius of this reunion episode is, I mean not episode, but like season is that like if they do their job right, people watch old Star Trek.
Yeah.
It's
Paramount Plus is like, oh, we're going to take full advantage of this back catalog we haven't purchased.
Exactly. And basically like with Rolaren, oh my god, she dies right here, and then you go like, oh my god, she has such an impact on all these characters. I wonder who she is, and then you just go to the episodes and watch them. Yeah.
So I want to talk about that for just a second because I agree, Paul. Like you talk about the Mandalorian, I am one of those people who went and had to research what the hell is this black lightsaber, right? Mm-hmm. And there are times, even with this episode, like with this show, like I'm watching going, okay, I got to remember exactly what happened with the changelings. I'm going back and I'm watching. And it's great for business. It's great for Paramount Plus. But my question is it great storytelling? Because I feel like I'm missing pieces and I'm not getting like the benefit of starting a story and learning about it firsthand. Unless you're trying to make me guess and figure out the mystery that you're going to unfold. Like, I don't know. I'm a little bit split. Like, I think they're doing it well. Like, I think they're doing it really well. But I get the benefit of having seen, 30 years of Star Trek.
Like, I think it's a lot of different, like, it's layered exposure, right? If you have all the catalog stored in your brain, everything is hitting right immediately. But if you go in straight without ever seeing any Star Trek, and it still can deliver excitement and killing goo people and like karate laser,
Yeah, I think they're succeeding in this way, and I want to talk about some theories about Jack kind of a little bit later, kind of connecting with all of this. But I do want to kind of jump back to the beginning. We kind of jumped right into Ro, but we do start with Riker giving a captain's log. It's the first time we've heard Riker giving a captain's log since TNG. Very exciting. Of course, Shaw has already called Starfleet and is singing a song from from the Breakfast Club in the lift. He is giddy with glee. Giddy. But I thought it was like a nice little reminder. And I think too, if you have not seen other series before, of Shaw essentially being like, yeah, y'all have saved the galaxy, but you've all also been real reckless. And here are some examples of that, which I thought was an interesting check and a reaffirmation of the character of Shaw after he's kind of out of this vulnerable state, right?
And I love that, Myrriah. I don't know that I love what he did, but I think Shaw in that turbo lift was amazing because you want to talk about callbacks to other episodes and other things that will test your knowledge, right? Like Shaw is a bit of he's a historian. Shaw is the Grant Davis of the show, right?
Indeed.
Right? Because Paul, what I mean by that is when we first started the podcast, Grant was the newbie. He literally never seen an episode. And so we would go back. So we started watching Discovery and we'd go back with Grant, particularly for Patreon episodes, and we'd watch old Trek and we'd watch old TNG. And no matter what episode we picked, he would come across and go, Picard's a prick. Like it never failed. And so he watched it with the sense of like, you guys love these characters, but they're kind of flawed if you look at them through our lens today. That is Shaw, and it's actually kind of sort of amazing. And the fact that he's looking like, yeah, you want to reminisce about all this great stuff, but let me remind you of the complete picture. And so I was here for it, even though I didn't appreciate the humming and the giddiness about our heroes being court-martialed. So
I think P.W. Gregory makes a good note. Shaw sounded like he was a Lower Decks character with all those references.
Spot on.
Very true. I did think it was interesting to see the interaction between Picard and Jack, kind of their only longer interaction this whole episode, really, in the hallway early on, where he is essentially trying to get Jack to warm up to the idea that he could potentially be in Starfleet, which I think is such an interesting, it's like the most Picard way of showing love. Do you know what I mean? Like, he's like, I have no other way of knowing how to love you, but other than telling you should join my bigger family, which is Starfleet. And that's how I'm going to try to show you that I care.
I got that. I also, it felt like this very small nod to the changing generation of Star Trek. And that I felt like if you go back and look at Star Trek, you look at TNG, DS9, you look at Voyager, it felt like anytime they came across some rebel, some outcast, some criminal with a great heart, their answer was recruitment. It felt like it was always recruitment, right? It's like, hey, McKee, you know what you could do? Yeah. You two could be Starfleet, right? And so in a sense, it was kind of like Picard, like, he's reminding of who he is and who Trek was. And Jack was like, nah.
Yeah, it's interesting to see the parallels, and y'all kind of brought it up earlier about how I felt like that conversation between Ro and Picard in 10 Forward was what he wished he had with Jack. And it was very much like seeing if he had the opportunity to influence Jack earlier on in his life, perhaps he would have ended up being who Picard thought he could have made Ro. But he does have this love of these like rebellious, people who just want to do good in the world, though, right?
Which is really consistent with his character, because young Picard is like reckless.
Yeah.
He and so it's great to see. As far as like his talking to Jack, from my opinion, I go like, oh, this just goes to show how little Picard is understanding his son. Like
100%. Yeah.
Like it goes to show that I think Jack sees who Picard is. Like he's a person who is a legend who is totally fine and was totally fine to not have children because he's committed fully to this one cause. But Picard can't see who Jack is, partly because Jack is like very defensive and But even
also, they've only known each other for seemingly less than 36 hours, you know?
3 days.
but like like Jack has been very clear in who he is. Like, he's a rogue. He's Star Trek Han Solo. The way he holds himself.
That's high praise.
I'm not saying that he is. I'm saying that that's how he thinks of himself.
Alana, I think, also makes an interesting point, and I think we see it in this episode. Jack doesn't even understand Jack, in that he has something going on, but he has no idea how to express it. And I thought it was interesting that in that kind of final little scene between Beverly and Jack this episode, that she's like, "Oh, you went through this as a kid." Like something similar. So it's not something that is totally new, but it seems to be rearing its head in some way. And I wonder if there's any correlation to him being closer to Picard, like a relation of distance to Picard. Does that enhance these like visions and dreams? That has something to do with the two of them being in proximity with each other. But
I suspect there's a possibility that Beverly knows what's going on.
I wouldn't be surprised. And she might know a way to help him bring back, right? Because this episode, we heard Beverly being like, "Come home, Jack." So perhaps there is something that happens that Beverly knows how to bring him back from.
Yeah, no, it's very interesting because, like, watching it the second time, I'm watching Beverly, and she's holding herself in a way that I go like, "Oh, do you know something?
Yeah.
Is this the real reason why you didn't tell Picard that you had a son? Is X, Y, and Z? Like, there could be more than just like, oh, I didn't want my son to die. It could be a lot of things. I'm really interested.
Everything in me wants to disagree.
Everything.
Like
everything?
every part of my being wants to go no. But to your point, Beverly's a doctor, and from what we understand, flagship of the Federation, she's a damn good one. And I have to believe that at some point she scanned and looked at her child numerous times. So there's a chance that if there's something going on with him physically, neurologically, she knows. There's a chance.
I wanted to pose, so speaking of people who have changed in medical things, our big reveal is that these changelings can, one, bypass the scans, and two, have seemingly human or humanoid looking organs until they're dissected, right? We see them all turn to goo. I thought that was some fun special effects. Well, one is, what are some potential thoughts on what caused this evolution? And then two, do you think they did it to themselves and potentially genetically modified, a la Khan, a la number one, how we've had previous conversations about genetically altered beings?
Well, the founders, as they are often called, they created the Jemadar. They created the Vorta.
Well, right, because they used to be solids, right? And then they became...
they used to be solids, but basically they genetically engineered the Vorta to be like, the Vorta were monkey squirrels, and then they became the Vorta, and like the Jemadar have been engineered so that they're addicted to Ketracel. So like they're all, everything is designed. They have a lot of, the Dominion is 10,000 years old. They have a lot of tech that like is pretty cool. They can transport over like solar systems. So that said, like it would not be beyond the Dominion's capability to modify any genetics, including themselves. I imagine. Like I think the canon says that. So maybe for whatever reason, like I feel that like the way that Beverly goes, like its evolution, it feels like something, an external force gave them this. Like like if the Borg helped the like that would be interesting.
Look, I agree with that, Paul, because for this very simple reason, evolution is slow. Evolution is ridiculously slow, and so if we had talked about, if this was in Discovery, and we had we went ahead, then I'd be like, okay, evolution. But we're talking about 30 years, not even 30 years. Yeah.
Oh,
I agree with you.
I could also make the argument that Odo was not a really good changeling. His capabilities of changing were remedial compared to the founders. Like he couldn't do a face, for example. He always looked like Odo, and so there could be the stimulus of like, oh well, we need to. They have internal scanners now. We need to get better. So maybe they just jacked up. You know, they're. So I don't know.
Changelings on steroids.
Exactly. Who knows? Like, you know, I'm eager to see.
Yeah, I was trying to see. I was trying to do some quick research on if the Borg had ever assimilated the changelings.
Never met.
So here's the thing, though: Prodigy, because they were able to assimilate Zero, proves that they can assimilate non-corporeal beings. So that does allow for the possibility.
Oh yeah, like I feel like if they nanoprobe like a changeling, like it would get assimilated. Like, you know, the only thing that the Borg nanoprobes haven't been able to deal with is like species like 8472.
Yeah,
is that 8472? Is that right?
8472. Yeah.
Yeah, and so so like it could be like it'd be very interesting to see, like, you know, like there's so many similarities between the Borg and the founders, you know.
Yeah, and I do. So I guess I'll are you guys ready for Myrriah prediction? So I think because they are probably trying to make it so that if you are only watching this series of Picard, and they've introduced an additional big bad, they've given us some references with the changelings. However, the original baddies throughout all of this series has been our Borg. And the Borg have played a part in every season thus far. We've had the Romulans with the deborging protocols happening and the big cube. Second season, obviously, we had Girardi. And now we have all of this talk of the Daystrom Institute, which is where Dr. Girardi came from. And so I think we're going to come all the way back around, and it's going to be something to do with the fact that Picard was assimilated and had a kid after being assimilated. And I was trying to think if we've ever seen any other person who's been deborgified and had children. And I don't think we have.
I like it. I like it.
So I think the collective is calling.
Well, so there is canon though, for what you're saying, because in in First Contact, you know, Picard knows where to shoot the cube because like he can hear the messages, and he has no more implants in him.
Right. So there's still some connection to the hive mind, the same way that Seven can kind of drop back into it if she needs to. Right.
So but does that mean that two thoughts have come to me now? Does that mean that if Seven has a kid, they might have a similar situation?
Connection to the collective, potentially.
Yeah, and I wonder if, I don't know. So when Jack was running through the hallway and Seven grabbed him,
Torres. That is interesting.
Ooh. I just never. I guess it felt like Seven and Jack had a, I don't know,
moment,
like just
right?
a moment. Like normally he's like, I would expect him to be like, get off me, like I don't need you, but he was just like, okay, where are you? I don't know, it was something there.
Something there.
To respond to Alana, like, you know, as far as Torres, like both Janeway and Torres and Tuvok, they did go get assimilated. They were on the Borg ship, but but the doctor gave all three of them like a neurolytic blah 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 mumbo jumbo, so that they would stay themselves. So I wonder
because there was something in that they had kind of pre done something prior to being assimilated.
Exactly. So they were primed to be unassimilated, you know, like kind of thing. So I wonder if that would be the loophole.
Yeah. And like, Picard and Seven are different in that way.
Yeah, and I have to always remember this current Picard is a synth, but the Picard that created Jack was not a synth.
Nope.
Yeah.
So
Jack's baby daddy was all real.
oh no. But yeah, I feel like it would stay within this realm, or it could be, I mean, the other big theory I've heard a lot kind of going around is that it's the paw wraiths, because of the eye situation that is happening.
Oh, interesting. Like once again, as you know, as the local lore master of the Power Race.
Thank you, Paul.
The prophets have said that like the Power Race are forever trapped in the fire caves with Dukat after they burned the book, the Kostamojin.
Mm-hmm.
So and since the prophets not only see time but like timelines, it would be unlikely that they would be wrong about that. That's just my hot take. I could be wrong. I'm just saying in canon there's stuff that like but one of the things that the prophets were able to predict a lot of things, like for example, like the coming of Peanut Hamper. It was very strong.
Very strong.
Yeah, and that was really unexpected too, because
so close. So
I'm gonna tell you, Clyde, you were never close. You were never.
It's gonna happen. Paul and I are on it. We don't even have to talk about it pre-pod. It just organically happens.
I keep letting my guard down. Every week I let my guard down, and then here I am. I'm listening to Paul, and I'm like, okay, wow. Paul, and I'm thinking to myself, Paul knows so much about the Paw race. Like, man, this is great. And then out of nowhere, Peanut Hamper, and I'm just like,
that's how Peanut Hamper is.
Right.
That is the lore of Peanut Hamper.
That's right.
Like you got me. You got me good at that one, I have to admit.
I mean, truly. So the other way Peanut Hamper could come into all of this is Peanut Hamper was already floating around in space, had access to the portal technology, and portaled Ro Laren right before that shuttle explosion. Ro is still alive.
Yeah, I love that.
No, that definitely felt like a Michelle Forbes, like goodbye.
But
stop asking me. I'm not coming to any conventions.
I will say Michelle Forbes does die a lot. Like
it's true. She's very good at it.
Yeah.
So I wanted to talk a little bit about Worf and Raffi's adventure this episode. I love their fight sequences together. I'm really enjoying all the fight choreography this whole season. I think it's looked really great. And I enjoyed their sort of standoff with Kryn, who is our Vulcan sort of deviant from the streets, if you will, which I found hilarious that he's wearing an Edic like giant necklace. Almost like you see like, I don't know, like rappers wearing giant crosses. I just found it very I feel like the costume department had a really good time making this like baddie Vulcan. Like he's going to be a cool cosplay at one point because he's got those cool like green scars under one eye. He's got like slices and dices on his face. And the guy is also an actor who's he's been in 12 Monkeys. There's been a lot of 12 Monkeys appearances this season. And I think he's also an MMA fighter. I think that's also what he does. Anyway, fun times. People love camoing, doing cameos in Trek.
Yeah, no, my favorite cameo is Gabrielle Union.
That is a good one.
Okay. I go as a Klingon.
Mine's Padma Lakshmi.
That's right, Pat.
I mean, both of those are good. Both of those are very good.
You got a favorite?
Oh, the Rock is also a fun one.
Rock is great.
This is gonna sound like I feel like it's gonna date me. So there's two actually like Trek cameos that I like. One is of course Kirstie Alley was one of my favorite, but also I can't remember her first name. Her last name is like LaBeouf. She played Sandra on the Cosby Show. the oldest daughter.
Yeah.
She was an ensign at one point, and I was like,
in Next Gen?
Not Next Gen. And no, was it? I think it was Next Gen, as a matter of fact.
Interesting.
Lots of love. Oh, Iggy Pop. That's a good one.
Iggy Pop's good. Like
Mae Jemison.
Love it.
Got some Vanessa Williams from the. Oh, yes. How can we forget Stacey Abrams?
Yeah.
And Cronenberg.
Yeah.
Had he only appeared one time, but I like having Cronenberg on the show.
Sabrina LaBeouf. Yes.
Oh, we should say have a shout out for Oscar winner Michelle Yeoh for this.
Oh. Yeah. I mean, like a series reg. I'm ready though. At this point, I'm like, listen, if we can't get Michelle Yeoh back, let's just have Worf, Rafi, and Seven lead our Section 31 show. Would not be mad. I feel like that's a real easy way to just like kick off the work you've already done on Section 31, just swap in these other characters.
No, I would. I hear you, but like Worf is a good guy. You know, Ralphie is a good guy, and Seven is a rogue, but she's a good guy. What you need is a not so
Emperor Giorgio.
You need a not so.
You don't need Captain Giorgio. You need Emperor Giorgio.
You don't need a bad guy, but you can't have a good guy. You know, I'm just thinking for Section 31. Like I think. But you know, anyway.
Yeah, I agree. I will also just say, you know, I've seen some chatter. There's like the, you know, some people call it like, there's like the curse of the best actress award. Like
sure.
That like kind of happens where folks don't get a lot of parts after they win these really, really big awards for a while. And I'm just saying Star Trek will always have you back, Michelle Yeoh.
Always.
Anytime in whatever role and capacity. I'm speaking on behalf of the entire network, but I'm sure they would also agree with me.
I mean, I just feel like, you know, she's also still so kick-ass, right? Like, you know, like action will always, action will always just take you. So like,
I mean, even her little thing when they panned to her at the Oscars, where they're like, "You're gonna have to go through Michelle." Like, she did a full like move, you know. Like everyone else was like, "Oh yeah, punch the screen," you know. But she was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna take you out." Like,
I mean, at the end of the day, Michelle Yeoh is amazing, but she got her like she burst on the scene for us with Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, which one of the best martial art movies for as far as I'm concerned ever. And like she was kick ass in that. So for like the stuff that she's doing now feels like this is cake for her. Like this is easy stuff for her.
Well, yeah,
because
like
she's been at the mountaintop. Like
yeah, I mean, she's really wrecked herself for plenty of movies. I love watching her original, not original, but like a lot of the Hong Kong like movies that she's in. They are incredible. I'll try to find, there's one where she's literally playing like an Indiana Jones type, like has a full whip, riding a horse, is like kicking everyone's butt, is saving villages. And I'm just like, this is all I ever want. It's just Michelle Yeoh kicking butt at all times. So anyway, that would be we've now hit the end of our Michelle Yeoh Love Fest segment, but I feel like it's a requirement after the Oscars.
That's right.
What else for this episode? I mean, our big, you know, a couple of other questions I have in thinking about the season thus far is Beverly seems to know that there's been something wrong, right? Like she was like, Picard trusts no one, not even Starfleet. And something's been up with like a miss with Starfleet folks coming after her and Jack. And now she kind of knows about the changeling things happening as well. So when Picard comes out after Shaw says that Starfleet's on the way, I was surprised Beverly wasn't more like, we can't trust anyone who comes over here. You know what I mean? Like there wasn't a big reaction there. And so I'm just wondering what y'all think was sort of happening in that space. Is she like, oh, we're sort of safe and now I'm safe because Picard is here and Picard can kind of handle it? Or is it like, I mean, what else are we going to do? Like, obviously Starfleet was going to come to this like broken down ship that they have to deal with, right?
Yeah, no, I think in the end, like if everyone is bad, you're paralyzed. So you have to trust someone. Right. Yeah. So like, so I think Beverly has no choice but to like start moving cautiously, and she can't just say don't trust anyone, although she does. You know, and she has to, you know, like she said, trust no one. First thing Picard does, brings Riker. I mean, so like it's one of those things where she's being cautious, but I don't think that it's I don't know. I think Shaw proved himself. Shaw's basically a hero. Anyway, go Clyde, you're saying?
Okay. I think the trust no one is a misnomer. I feel like it's trust no one else except for our tribe, right? Like if you're in our circle, you're okay. But don't trust anybody else, right? And so, because I mean, we're looking and going, yeah, he trusts Ro because she's one of them, right? So he like, it's not like he saw Worf and was like, oh no, we can't trust him. Like, who are you? It's like, no, it's like my friend. Like, if you're part of that crew, that clique, then we trust you. But we're not trusting anybody else outside of that. And you know, Shaw is a necessary. You have to, right? But I thought it was funny that at the end of the day, he's telling Shaw, "Trust me. You got to trust me." Shaw's looking at him like, I don't have to trust you. I just don't have another choice.
I don't know. I mean, like,
it's true. It is. I was going to say, Alana makes a good point. Starfleet's getting infiltrated constantly. They need to get it together. Even just in the series, the first season, we had
100%.
a bunch of people who were infiltrated by the Romulans who were in the synth kind of program mess of it all.
Well, you know, in season 1, like Starfleet was infiltrated by these bug aliens. And they took over like all of the Admiralty, you know, and it took Picard and Riker to save the day, but like, you know.
Yeah, and I mean, I think we have the trope of the Badmiral for this very reason as well.
That's right. There you go.
The Badmiral, yes. I guess here's something that I have for you, a question for you that I have for you guys. So this is episode 5. We've got like 3 episodes left?
5
episodes left.
Don't set me up for another peanut hamburger, Clyde.
No,
I don't want to do it.
But what I'm looking at is there's some characters that we were somewhat expecting that we haven't seen yet, and we're at the halfway point. Essentially, we have yet to see Lore. We have yet to see Moriarty. We have yet to see Geordi LaForge. Right, like. At this point, I'm almost concerned, like, to introduce any of those characters. Is it gonna be a Michelle Forbes situation where you show up halfway through an episode and by the end of the episode you're dead? Like,
well, I did see oh my gosh, how am I Mika Burton posted today on Twitter that she's so excited because next week's finally her episode. And she's like, and by the time the season's over, you'll be sick of me. So I'm assuming that the LaForge family is coming together next week. And I think, and I feel like someone made a comment here. So we get a clue from Kryn, our bad Vulcan, that the way to break into Daystrom is like the most logically illogical way to get into Daystrom. And I think I saw someone in the chat, I'll try to find it again, had said that Moriarty is the way to get past the advanced AI at Daystrom.
Maybe. So, yeah. It's gonna be interesting.
Okay.
So you use that hollow program to like infiltrate and get in. And I'm assuming they're going to go get their best engineer to help them with this project.
Lana Torres?
I mean, she's one of my faves. Their best engineer. I should clarify. So that's my theory about everyone is meeting up at the Daystrom Institute to get into some
hijinks.
Shenanigans.
Shenanigans at Daystrom.
I don't know, like I don't think that we've talked enough about Shaw and how great he was this episode. Clyde, you want to start?
Look, I've already said that I liked kind of what he was doing in the elevator. I think when this is all said and done, Shaw literally is he's a captain, and not a temporary captain or a cameo captain. He's a full-blown like Star Trek captain. And I actually think that we're going to see tremendous amount of growth from Shaw for the rest of the season, right? Because I think what we've seen out of Shaw is he's been reluctant. He wants to play it by the book. But at some point, he has to realize that at any point, if he plays it by the book, he and the entire crew is dead, right? Like, yes, they should have never been at that far end of the Federation space, but the changelings were coming for him. They had like he at one point he mentions like 4 on a ship. Like, no, man, that was at least 5 because you forget the one that you killed earlier. Like, at some point, even Shaw has to sit back and go, there have been 5 changelings on my ship. Standard protocol ain't gonna get it done here. And so I think we're gonna see growth from him from here on out.
So in your mind, growth is breaking the rules.
Growth is knowing when to apply it's like this. Growth is when do you listen and follow orders, and when do you do what's right. Ultimately.
Sure. No, I hear you. Like, I just had a thought, and what if Beverly is the big? That's right. What if Beverly is the big bad of this season?
I don't know if she would have come back if she was the big bad of the season, unless it was for some very big, justly righteous reason.
Well, I say that only because I have in my mind that Picard's gonna wind up with Laris, and so
Well, I don't think they have to end up together.
I know. I understand.
I think it would be. I would prefer they don't end up together because I
don't think they're gonna end up together.
No, I'm not asking for that. I'm just going because we talk about how Jack is being sketch about, but if I'm not reading too much into it, I feel like Beverly is the one being the most sketch.
Do you think Beverly's going to lose another son by the end of the season?
Yes.
I don't know. I like there's a part of me there's a part of me that there's a part of me that I wonder I don't know, it's too half-baked to put out there.
So I'll say this from a storytelling standpoint, my gut wants to say yes, because that to me is where I could see the story going.
Bad Beverly?
Well, no, not Bad Beverly. Like ultimately Jack's gonna have to
sacrifice himself,
right?
Or Picard's gonna sacrifice himself for Jack to live, and that's how Picard's story ends, is sacrificing.
That all makes sense. I just think that from a business standpoint, there are a couple characters here that you've invested in. 3 new characters that I feel like you've invested in: Jack, Shaw, and Crash LaForge, right? And I think if you're smart from a studio standpoint, you hold on to those properties because you may want them later.
Yeah.
Right?
Right. It's why we never fully lost, except for poor... oh my gosh, why am I blanking on his name?
Oh, yeah.
You talking Samurai Nun?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Bad Myrriah. Bad.
Oh my God, my brain just turned all the way off. I need to reboot.
Yes.
But yes, I feel like there's a reason we haven't lost, Rafi is still around, Seven is still around, although Seven is a legacy character. But we wrote a way for some of these other characters to have the potential to come back, right?
Yeah.
Elnor. Oh my God.
Elnor. Yes, there we go. Also, I don't know. I think, and this is probably more of a question than a statement. you're talking about some characters that, quite honestly, and I don't want to get into age really, but you're talking about characters who are in their 60s and their 70s or more.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that they'd want to really play with their legacy, right? Because at the end of the day, Gates McFadden is like her television hit, like she's royalty in television history. She's on one of the most iconic franchises, as like she's in the, like if there's a hall of fame for sci-fi, she's in it, right? Like I would say this: if you line up and say who are the top 10 doctors in sci-fi television history, you can't have that conversation without mentioning her name.
Right.
And so I think you look at, if you talk about first officers, you can't have that conversation without mentioning Riker's name. I just don't know that they're going to play too much, like play fast and loose with their legacies. In this,
like for doctors, you got like, Leonard McCoy, you got Kate Pulaski.
Negative.
You have the doctor.
The doctor.
I think you do have the doctor.
Mm-hmm.
You got the Enterprise doctor. What's his name?
Bones.
No.
You said it over. Oh no. You can't even remember it, so it doesn't count.
Anyway, I feel like you're right, and I don't think any of these legacy characters are really going to become villains, but I do think there's potential for some of these characters
Phlox. Thank you, Phlox.
To get
Julian Bashir.
Julian Bashir. Oh, Bashir, yes. I think there's potential for some of these characters to want to fully close their books. Sure.
Yes.
What I think is there's a potential for.
Who do you think would want to close their book?
Sir Patrick Stewart, who is 82 years old. I think he would like to keep his executive producer book very open, but I don't know how much longer he wants to be put through the paces on a Star Trek show.
He's died already once on this series. So
yeah. So I don't know. I don't know. I don't think he has to, but I think, there's I think it's also as we talk about business, right? These legacy characters probably cost a whole lot more to bring back than any of these new characters cost to continue on a new series.
Yeah, no, I think if they do the Titan show, that I think that aside from 7, I'm sorry, Commander Hansen.
No, it's 7. It's Commander 7.
See, the thing about the thing that I'm struggling with the Titan show is none of these characters are actually on the Titan from the books, from the novels. Not a single one.
Well, where do the novels stop?
That was with what's it, Riker, right? Like,
don't they stop with Riker?
Yeah. But
this is a Neo Constitution class, baby.
Yeah, I know.
Neo. It's the one.
It's just one that you think you'd have a character or something, but anyway, I digress. My nerdness is showing. So
yeah, no, it's good. It's good. I feel like they try to stay pretty faithful to a lot of these things. They said they reference the books a lot as they were prepping the Titan. So I think they try to keep that in mind for sure. Was there anything else y'all want? Ooh, Picard must be assimilated. That would be wild. Can they assimilate synth Picard? Do we get synth Locutus of Borg?
Well, there was a point where Data was going to be assimilated, right?
Oh yeah, that's true.
So
I mean, and he is essentially a product of Data's evolution, right? So yeah.
Very interesting. Anything else y'all want to talk about in this particular episode?
No, I think we're good. I'm good. But I got my hamper in.
Yep, we got peanut hamper in. We're good to go.
Yep.
Yeah, I think there's lots of theories swirling around. I'm excited for next week. We shall see what happens. And I think the gang gets fully together by the end of next episode. So I think we'll have the full crew up.
The full Scooby gang.
Full Scooby gang ready for shenanigans. As always, thank you all so much for joining us this week on the podcast. We will be back next week on Thursday. Join us live if you like to. We start at 8 p.m. Pacific time, 10 p.m. Central, 11 p.m. Eastern. I just did all of that math. Hooray. And on YouTube, you can find us at Star Trek Discovery Pod. Visit StarTrekPod.co for links to video and to audio podcasts. Find our link to our Patreon there as well. Shouts to Karen, who helps run our Twitter. We're at Star Trek Pod. We'll see you all next time. Live long and prosper.
Live long and prosper, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Later.